Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 15th episode of the Aardvark Accessibility Podcast. My name is Natalie G, and I'm an accessibility novice. And with us today is
Natalie Mack, accessibility expert.
And in today's episode, we are going to talk about web accessibility when building websites from scratch. So we ended up making this a two-parter. This one is going to be geared towards website owners. Oh,
You're really
no.
excited about that.
Website owners, and the next part is going to be geared towards developers and agencies. So, to kick us off, Natalie, why is it important to build a website to be accessible from scratch?
Oh, it's your favorite metaphor, Natalie, from Lady Feingold, that you cannot put the chocolate chips in the cookie after it's baked. So if you try to build your website and then come back and try to make it accessible, it's going to be a nightmare. It's not going to be fun. And it's probably going to at least double the cost of your website, because going back to a website that was built without accessibility in mind and trying to make it accessible is very difficult and very time consuming, and it could double or even triple the cost of having the website built to begin with. If you instead build an accessible website from the very beginning, I would say you're probably looking at maybe about 20% more cost to have an accessible website versus an inaccessible one.
Yeah, so for one, it's very cost effective. But there are other benefits too.
There's benefits to having an accessible website. They're more SEO friendly. And who doesn't want their site to be found in search engines? I mean, you put it online because you wanted people to find it, presumably. You can avoid legal risks. So you won't be getting demand letters, or if you do get a demand letter, you'll have proof that you have been working on the accessibility of your website and it has been improving. The overall user experience of an accessible website tends to be better. They tend to be more performant. Having an accessible website could also increase your potential audience by up to 20%, because there are between 1 in 5 and 1 in 4 Americans who are people with disabilities. So you're going to capture even more of the market and potentially increase your revenue by up to 20%.
So if your website is accessible, it just means more people can interact with it, more people can understand it, can get to all the parts of your website that you want them to interact with, like your contact forms, your checkout pages, all that good stuff.
They can get to all the good stuff and they can get to it no matter what device they happen to be using. If they're out and about and trying to buy something from your website on their phone, it's going to work. If they're at home on their laptop or their tablet, it's going to work.
Yeah, I think that's a good segue to the next question. What does it mean for your site to be accessible? Do you have like an overarching definition?
Yeah, I think roughly what a lot of people think of is that it meets WCAG guidelines, right? And we've dug into WCAG guidelines on other episodes, and I'm sure we'll do it in the future. But there is things that you can do beyond the WCAG guidelines. The WCAG guidelines are really just a baseline. So there's all different kinds of best practices you can implement. But at the end of the day, a website being accessible just means that it can be used by anybody who happens to show up with whatever device or assistive technology they happen to be using. They're going to be able to use the website without any issues.
Yeah. In our last episode, we covered a little bit about myths about people who have disabilities don't use websites. That's not true.
That's not true at
Or
all.
only certain websites need to be accessible, but that's also not true.
All websites should be accessible.
Mhm. Okay, so we covered why websites need to be accessible. For one, it's the most cost effective option. You get a bunch of benefits as a business, and most importantly, more people can access your site and use your services or understand your content. What does it mean to be accessible? It means everyone can access your site, navigate it, use it. So, how is all this tied to making a website from scratch?
Yeah. So when you're getting started on a new website project, it is really important that you think about accessibility from the very beginning. And that's going to impact all of the decisions that you make about the website, who you hire to build it, if you're going to hire somebody to build it. If you're going to build it yourself, you have to think about what tools are you going to use and are those accessible. If somebody else is going to build it for you, they're probably in this day and age not building that completely from scratch. They're probably using a platform like WordPress, Drupal, Squarespace. They're using something as their platform. So if you're hiring somebody to build it, they're probably also using a platform or a tool that's going to make it easier for you to update and manage content on your own later on. And you want to make sure that that tool, whatever gets chosen, is accessible, because you can't fix that later. You have to start over again if you're going to fix it later. You can't build a site on one platform, realize that that platform isn't accessible, and just move it to a different platform. You can't easily migrate sites like that between different platforms. So you're going to have to start over. And the only thing you might be able to skip is if you did an extensive like custom design process first, where maybe you had a designer do some branding and choose some colors and do some mock-ups of some designs. That would be the only thing that you wouldn't have to start over on. But you might even have to start over on that if those designs weren't accessible, if they chose colors that didn't have enough contrast, if they chose different design components that weren't accessible. You might even have to throw that out and start over. So there's lots of different ways that the different stages of building a website, you have to think about accessibility and how that's going to come into the final product. When you do that correctly from the very, very beginning, building an accessible website is much easier, much more cost effective, but you have to make all the right decisions from the very beginning.
I mean, if you already have an existing website, you could also count a lot of the content that's already written. You, that could easily be migrated.
Yeah, if
But
nothing else, that can be copied and pasted manually, right?
yeah, but the pages themselves, like you have to go through and recreate every single page. A lot of copy pasting.
Yeah, it's a lot of copy pasting. And often when a customer comes to me and says, I've got this website and it's not accessible and I want to make it accessible, very often it is cheaper to just start again. And even if the design is all accessible and the way the site looks is fine, and there's plenty of contrast in the colors and all the different custom components and things that are designed can work in an accessible way, you still have to kind of start from scratch and rebuild that website. It's faster to do if you don't have to make a lot of design decisions and you don't have to do all that design work. But it is faster and easier to start from scratch and rebuild a website often than trying to take something existing and make it accessible. It just costs way more money and it's a lot more difficult. It's a lot more headaches.
Yeah. Because even if the designer, they chose like a lot of tabs, they chose a lot of drop down menus, or what are those called where it's like stacked and they open?
Accordions.
Accordions, yes. Or picked really tiny font sizes for your design.
Or put auto playing videos somewhere on the page.
Or used a lot of tables.
Yeah. There's lots of unfortunate decisions that you can make in the design stage that's going to impact the accessibility of the site later on. So you want to be thinking about that and make sure that if you've hired a designer to work on your website, that it is somebody who's versed in accessibility and they know how to test and check colors that they're using for accessibility. And they have some general ideas on how content should be structured, what a form should look like, because this is where things go wrong a lot of the time, is that designers will decide that having labels on form fields looks sloppy or cluttered, and they take them out. And that is a crucial element of accessibility, is to have labels for form fields. So you want somebody who knows that they can't make those kinds of decisions so that they're not then turning over an inaccessible design to a developer to be built. And then the developer is stuck having to say, well, I can't build the form that looks like this because it's not accessible. And then you have to decide, are you going to send it back to the designer to have them redo it? Are you going to have the developer just ad hoc try to change it? And that might not look good and it might not mesh with the rest of the design. And it gets very, very messy.
Yeah. And then I know with a lot of platforms, they also rely on like third party components. Like
Yeah.
WordPress is notorious for plugins and themes, but it's becoming really popular across other website platforms too.
Yeah, because the platform itself, you can't build every type of functionality that somebody might want into a platform. You can make some pretty good guesses about functionality most people will want, right? Like a form builder. Most websites end up having at least one form on them. But other types of functionality, like appointment scheduling or newsletters, right? Not everybody's going to want that. And it doesn't always make sense to build that into like a core product, but it does make sense to give people a lot of flexibility to kind of take different building blocks, right, and put together just the functionality that they need. But then you end up in a situation where now instead of, just if you have a WordPress site, instead of it just being a WordPress site, well, now you have a WordPress site with functionality from 20 other random developers who built these plugins so that you can have, e-commerce and you can have appointment scheduling and you can have all this other functionality on the site. But it's not cohesive anymore because it's from all different people. And do all of those developers know about accessibility? Did they all build their plugins to be accessible? Chances are they didn't. And so you have to evaluate all of those add ons before you add them to your site to make sure that they're accessible.
Yeah, which ties back to picking the right person to build your site, right? Because you can't expect your client to know all the different plugins you're going to use and whether they're accessible or not.
Yeah. As a website owner, you're just not going to know those things. You're not going to have that kind of technical knowledge. That's why you're hiring somebody to help you because you need some help navigating that because it is very confusing. And you can build on pretty much any of the popular platforms that are out there, like right now. Squarespace, Wix, Weebly, WordPress, Drupal, or like any of those, you can build an accessible website on it. But that none of them make that particularly easy to do. Like just a layperson with no knowledge of web accessibility probably can't, which is unfortunate situation. It's an unfortunate state of affairs. Somebody who does know what they're doing, who knows about web accessibility and can evaluate all those different packages and add-ons and options that you could turn on or off in the tool, they can get an accessible website out of that process at the end because they know how to navigate and test and figure out which things they can use and which things they can't.
Yeah. And it's really important because down the line, like after you've already paid for all these plugins, all these add ons, if the wrong person built your site, like a year later, now you have to scrap everything. Now you have to throw away all these plugins. It becomes really hard to transition.
Or even worse, you have somebody build you a website, they do a beautiful job, it's fully accessible, it's working wonderfully. And then 2 years later, you decide, I would like to add some functionality. I want to sell some products or I want to have classes or something like that. And then you pick a plugin that's not accessible to add to your website. Well, now you've ruined everything.
Yeah. You lose some of the SEO benefits or you expose yourself to legal risks just from adding one plugin.
And you potentially lose some of your customers.
Yeah, you can lose some of your customers, especially if it's really important functionality like memberships handling,
Yeah.
e-commerce handling.
Yes. Yeah. If somebody can't check out from their cart, you're not going to get their money.
Mm-mm. No, they're going to leave your site and go to another site. All right. So, all in all, it's the best option to start accessibility from the start.
It is the best way to do it.
from scratch.
Yes, from scratch.
Yeah. And that relies on finding the right person to do it, making sure to ask questions along the way. Is this the right platform? Is this the right plugin, the right tools? Because later down the line, you want to switch over.
It can be really painful. Very painful, very time consuming, and very expensive later on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, with all that said, Natalie, where can website owners get started? Where can they go if they want to make their sites accessible?
They can come to aardvarkaccessibility.com, and it can really be helpful for the process of building a website because you could actually hook up your development site or your staging site to Aardvark, keep an eye on it all through the development process, and then keep using it on production once your site is live.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you can monitor it all the way through from staging to production and any changes in between.
From the first line of code to the last.
Yes, from scratch.
From scratch.
You're baking the cookie. Wait, you're baking the chocolate chips in the cookie.
That's the best way to do it.
All right. So with that, that is the 15th episode of the Aardvark Accessibility Podcast. Thank you so much to everyone for listening, and we will talk to y'all next time. And now for our YouTube viewers, we're going to do the thumbnail pose of this.
Oh, did
And,
you have one already?
and again, I don't have one planned. I think after the 10th episode, I ran out of ideas.
No, there's like thousands of emojis. Really, there's like a random emoji generator. Hold on, let me go find one.
Oh, you know what? ChatGPT. Chetty G is going to come in handy. Give me a random emoji to mimic its pose. Alright, you ready what he says? Ooh, Chetty G said try a fun dance pose, and then he sent one.
What's the dance pose?
It's the guy dancing like this.
Your camera is cutting you off, so I can't see your arms. Oh, one arm up and one arm down.
Yeah.
Why are we looking so weird?
You have to really. I think I like this side better. Oh lord, that was like it's gonna come out so silly. The shivering one, that thumbnail, the whole wild. I'm like, why did we do this?
It's because if your site isn't accessible, you leave your users out in the cold.
And so with that, we cut.